freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 273 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearms.com, your nationwide hometown gun shop. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme is, what is training? And our guest is David Laird. David is the owner of Dynamic Combative Solutions LLC. He is a husband of 20 years, a father of 7. I'm tired. Grandfather 1.5. And David currently holds black belts. And here we go. Tae-Kwon-do, moo-duk-kwan-tang-soo-do, Tai-Chi, Aikido, and has studied various other styles. He is a 10th generation Army, serving with the 82nd Airborne Division in the infantry. Wow, thank you for your service, David. He is also an NRA training counselor. He is an NRA Carry Guard instructor and is an active self-protection certified instructor.
And David is an avid supporter of the Second Amendment. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I'm
Absolutely.
sorry about all that stuff in there, David, but I don't know. Anyway.
How much did he butcher your previous training?
He did fine.
Fantastic.
So explain those to us, David.
Yeah.
What are those? Give us a clue.
Well, Taekwondo is where I originally started when I was about 10 years old. I got my first degree black belt when I was 12 years old, and then got my second degree black belt when I was 14, and my third degree black belt when I was 16. They had to make an exception for me. I started teaching when I was 12, so I kind of had a passion for teaching. Mainly, I just spent a lot of time hanging around the dojo. So they're like, well, Dave, if you're going to be here all the time, why don't you get the class started? And so that sort of led to some other stuff. But Taekwondo is South Korean kickboxing. Moo-duk-kwan-tang-soo-do is a Chinese way of the fist for North Korea. Aikido is a Japanese samurai style. And Tai-Chi is what I think is one of the oldest martial arts. And that's also comes from China. But I've studied some Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu and several other styles, but just kind of dabbled in those styles. And as far as shooting goes, that's just always been kind of a family thing because of our generational Army heritage. I've got 2 sons currently serving in the Army, and I've got one more who probably will go as soon as he finishes high school.
Wow, that's incredible. I know when I read that 10th generation, like where does that even take us back to? Like the formation of our nation?
No, actually before that. So my mother's side of the family is Fraser, Wilson, and Frew. They came over on the Mayflower. They settled in northern Pennsylvania. My father's side of the family settled in South Carolina in 1630. So we fought in the French and Indian Wars. Both sides came from Scotland. So there's actually a Laird, Scotland, which is a town in Scotland. So we're all 100% Scottish, but I married an Italian-German woman. So she brings a lot of flavor to the family.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I think we can see if you hold up, is it here that you have the feathers tattoo?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it farther up on your arm?
Yeah,
And,
so that's
I was asking you one day what that was about.
So that's our
Beautiful.
Scottish crest. So that's the phoenix rising up out of the ashes, and that's centered on a belt buckle, and around it is the inscription duty honor country. So the 3 feathers represents the chieftain of our clan. And so myself and my oldest boys all have it to show that we're all part of the same clan. So it's something that they earn when they turn 18, and they're all quite proud of it. And it's just a reminder of, to us, obviously your duty to God, your duty to family, your own honor is something that you give yourself. It's not something anyone can take away from you. And obviously, service to your country, because if you're not here to improve things, and why are you here?
That's awesome. I just absolutely love that. And that you really are a family oriented guy. And I think that that is just so beautiful and unfortunately lacking, I think, in our current generation. And so you can really inspire people through the work that you do just with your own family and with your training. And what I was hearing as you were ticking off all those um, different kinds of training that you've had, the Tae-Kwon-do and the Tai-Chi and the Aikido, all of that, what I hear in that is discipline. There's a discipline to interacting with these disciplines, these trainings, and then with the world at large. And so, as I've titled this show, I want you to answer the question, to you, what is training?
So training is a noticeable change in behavior, and that has to come from an outside entity. When you're at home and you're redoing the same things that you already know, that's not necessarily training, because you're not learning a new task. So in other words, when you're learning the alphabet and you go to school and you start writing your cursive letters and you're tracing over other letters so that you learn how to write cursive, you're teaching yourself what it is that they want you to learn. They've sort of given you a diagram, so you can sort of repeat the behavior. But we all know that not everybody's cursive looks the same. Even though we all traced the same letters when we turned in our assignment, everybody's got different handwriting. Okay, so we do our best, and I'll tell you, there's some people out there that actually perform better. Here's the example, and then they have this beautiful cursive, and then there's other people that are like, yeah, this is kind of sketch, and I'm the squiggly line guy. I'm the one that colors outside the box. So that being said, we want to try and help each person achieve their best at whatever it is that they're trying to learn. So you have to be flexible, and we've worked a lot with people who have handicaps. So I can't expect somebody who's missing fingers to perform the same tasks or necessarily perform at the same level as everybody else, but I do understand what's necessary for them to be successful. And it also depends greatly on what their task is. Somebody who's retired is going to have different goals and objectives than somebody who wants to enlist in the military who's 18. And somebody who's serving in law enforcement is going to have different goals and objectives than a security guard, et cetera. So in one class, you can have a whole plethora of these different things, but we still have the same task that we're trying to learn. We're all trying to learn cursive. But we have to be flexible about the individual goals of every individual student.
I love that analogy. And I'd never really thought about that before, but you're right. We all start out with the exact same shapes. We're being graded on the same, and then we kind of make it our own. And but that is awesome. So a noticeable change in behavior is a way to think about what is training. Now, this document that I point to, I think almost every single show, this big, huge, thick document that takes about a whole hour to read, called our Constitution and Bill of Rights. What, if anything, does our Constitution say about training?
Well, that's two books in one. That document was framed using the Bible. And so personally, I think that everybody needs to read the Bible so they can understand the framework of the Constitution, because that's where we get these inalienable rights. In other words, these are things that you're naturally born with that nobody gets to take away. And there's plenty of scripture that backs up self-defense, that it's your job to protect your fellow man, that you have a duty to protect your family and your fellow man. So anybody, in my personal opinion, who doesn't believe in self-defense is starting off on the wrong foot to begin with. You first have to decide that I have the right to tell other people no to certain things, and that there's nothing you can do about it. I don't care what law you pass. I don't care what your personal feelings are. There's a red line you're never going to cross with me, and we'll share words if it comes to that. You know, somebody walks up to you on the street and says, "Give me your wallet." You got two options: give them your wallet and avoid the confrontation, or you tell them to pound sand. Now, maybe not everybody is comfortable specifically with firearms. That's fine, but I don't think everybody here is comfortable just giving away their wallet anytime somebody asks it. So that right away, I think, is the mental framework that you need first, that you have a right to tell people no to certain things. And I'm real passionate about that when it comes to young ladies. When men cross their boundaries and they want to be able to tell that person no. I've raised all my daughters to have a strong voice. And my son gets upset with me. He did it last night. He's like, "Dude, why do you always let your daughter talk back to you?" And I said, "Because I want her to be a feisty person, and I want her to know she can always tell a man no." Where I'm pretty hard on my boys, because I want them to learn to be disciplined and to listen, because their wives are going to test their patience. Aside from that,
Their wives are
He's
going
a
to test
smart
their
man, you
patience.
know?
Yeah, I mean, yes, spoken truthfully.
so that framework is what brings us to obviously the First Amendment, which says that, you know, you have the right of free speech. You have a voice. You get to tell people no.
Mhm.
That one's super important, because that's the first step. The second step is the authorization of that no. That is the power and backup that's given to you and granted to you by God to tell people no.
Mm.
It says a well-regulated militia. That's the first phrase of the Second Amendment, and well-regulated means well-trained. And so
Mhm.
a well-regulated militia being necessary to the free state.
Mhm.
People to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So if you're going to bear arms, you need to be well-regulated, which means you're well-trained. So whether it's for personal defense or because you're afraid of a tyrannical government, it's not enough that you own all the fancy tools and equipment and you march around and parade around. You need to be proficient with your tools, and years of practice and training. And if training is looking for a new learned behavior or a perfection of a behavior, then you need to see multiple instructors, and you need to see go to multiple different training organizations, because you're going to see different levels of experience, not just with their handling of self-defense or their teaching methods, but their personalities and the overall goals that you're achieving from taking that class. So you want to make sure that there is a goal to the class, that there's a measurement of your performance when you arrive, that there's a measurement of your performance when you leave, so you can see a noticeable change. If you shoot just as well when you leave as when you showed up, then what did you learn and what did you really get trained? So it bothers me when I go to a range and I see people just slinging lead at paper, and they call that training. Well, I train all the time. No, that's practice, because practice is repeating what it is you already know. And you can be dumb and drive your car like crap. And just because you've been driving for 20, 30 years doesn't mean you're ready to run in a NASCAR race. And I would definitely say that, when we're teaching our kids how to drive, we're very slow, very methodical about letting them drive during certain times, only a certain amount, only in certain areas, at certain speeds, long before we ever let them hit the freeway. We don't just throw the keys at them and say, "Okay, you're ready for NASCAR." And a fight for your life, like when it really, really matters, is like driving in NASCAR. The is traveling at 200 something miles an hour, and you're getting glimpses of images, and it requires a lot of training to keep your brain focused. And those drivers are so in tune with their tools and gear. They're not looking down to gear shift. They're not thinking about what their hands are doing. Like, their feet and hands and everything are moving so quickly, it's completely in tune and allows them to fully concentrate on the view of what's going on the road in front of them. They have to be aware spatially of all the other cars around them and know where they are at all times, because they're so in tune with winning that particular race. And your fight's going to be very much the same way. You get distracted for an instant and you're going to be spinning out and in the curb.
Wow, very well said. And I have had the honor, honestly, of training with you for an afternoon, and it was a wonderful experience. And you had students out there of varying degrees of proficiency. I had brought out a firearm that I hadn't even fired before, and I just kept struggling and struggling. And then finally, you were able to help me realize that I was using sights that were not properly aligned. And I even struggled with that because I'm like, it is a poor musician that wants to blame their instrument, right? But you were so you were very patient, and you just had a professionalism about yourself, and you helped me, not get stuck on that, and just say, well, it is what it is, and here's what we can do to correct it right on the spot. And it just gave me a sense of accomplishment and proficiency by the end of the day. It was wonderful, and I appreciate it.
Well, it was wonderful having you, and you actually performed really, really well. So all the viewers should know that Cheryl can handle a firearm, and you were consistently in the exact same spot. So I recognized that something had to be going on, and I test fired it, which that's really important for everybody to do is functions check and verify your sights, all that sort of stuff, because we run into that sort of thing all the time in our classes, and that's one of the reasons why we go through everybody's firearms, tools, and equipment at the beginning of class. And then we still find things like sights that might be off in the middle of class. But at least we got all that figured out. And that's another great part about training is you get an opportunity to test all your tools and equipment. We think that a holster is going to be good for us, and then we try to use it in a class and we find that it doesn't work for what we want to do. Or we bring a pistol to class because, that's what we intend to carry. And then we find out that it's not going to work for what it is that we want to do. One of my big frustrations is when we do like our EDC class, that's our everyday carry class, is a lot of folks bring their full size firearm and their chest rig and all that sort of stuff. And I ask them, is that what you carry every day? And they're like, oh no, I carry a P365. I'm like, well, then why did you bring the chest rig and the big gun and all that sort of stuff? Since this is an everyday carry class. So we need to make sure that when we are going to go do our training, that we try to train in the environment we're planning to actually work in. So if you're law enforcement, bring the chest rig. If you're military, bring the chest rig. But if you're a civilian, then, come out in your skirt,
Mm-hmm.
that pocket pistol or whatever it is, so we can truly test your methods. And then it's not for me to decide. I'm not going to tell you that your gun doesn't work or your holster doesn't work or your outfit doesn't work. I want you to discover that. So because then you'll hold that as a self-truth, and then you'll make the adjustments you need for yourself. And then I won't be the bad guy that made you feel bad.
Yeah, it's kind of a reminder for the 8 million brand new gun users out there today, or this year, that when you buy a gun from a gun shop, doesn't mean it's necessarily ready to go, right?
Well,
it needs sighted
see,
in, it needs...
there's a million avenues we can go down with this, because when you're new to all this is the most frustrating thing for me as a trainer. Is the first thing everybody does is buy a gun. But which gun did you get? The one the guy gave me. Well, why did you get it? Because he said it was good. It's like, hold on a second. We don't know if it fits your hand. We don't know if it fits your lifestyle. We don't know. I mean, you haven't even shot a gun before. I mean, you bought the gun first. And I like to tell folks to, take some classes first, learn more about firearms, go and shoot with some friends and try out some various different styles. There's lots of ranges that'll let you rent guns. Try some of those and see if you like any of those and why you like it, so that you can make an educated decision and get the gun you want, not the one that's available. Because we also saw a big shortage of firearms. And so, well, we don't have, but here, well, let's give you this one, which completely operates. So there's a whole ball of wax with that, but that's the most amazing thing, because typically we drive someone's car before we buy our own. But guns is the only market where you go out and buy the gun first, then the ammunition, and then learn about it. And the last thing I think on everyone's list is a cleaning kit and a gun safe.
Right.
But what did we see, Dan, in this crazy COVID year that we just went through with the huge buying? We actually sold more safes than we ever have before.
We sold out of safes, which the year before we couldn't sell a single safe. So, and David, I agree with what you're saying. Some gun shops will sell you anything that they have behind the counter. And then there are other gun shops that will try to encourage you. We've encouraged people not to buy a gun today. Look around, go out, even though, because we don't have a range, we tell them to go to our competition and try a gun at a range, and then hopefully come back for our service and what we do.
But you guys are the exception to the rule. AZ Firearms, one of the reasons why I enjoy you guys and love you guys so much is because you really do kind of hand walk the customer through thoughts. You have them, you get them thinking when they come in, when they're asking for stuff. You ask questions. Well, you know, what are you here for? Why? All that sort of stuff. You get to the meat and potatoes and the bottom of it. And you guys are large enough that you're not enticed to sell a gun today. Let's help you what it is you need. And I love that about you guys, which is why I love working with you guys.
Thank you.
But you have the Bass Pros and you have the Cabela's and the really big brand names where the actual minimum wage guy working behind a counter is trying to work towards a bonus of some kind and building points for SIG or Glock to get a free firearm and all that sort of stuff. So our market actually works against doing what's in the best interest of gun owners. But you're right, the small mom and pop shops, and that's one of the reasons why I push folks to AZ Firearms is to support local, family owned, because these people, you're kind of assisting your own community. You know, reasons why I got into firearms training is because I love doing the tactical Timmy classes, but just as much, I like training the average Joes on the basic stuff because I'm arming my own fellow Americans in my community and helping them be safe because maybe I am at Walmart, maybe I need backup. That's what I think about is I'm force multiplying our community to make Arizona a safer place to live.
That's a good way to think of it. We do that. When I walk with Cheryl and my daughter, I feel like I'm better protected because they have my back.
Absolutely.
You know?
And then, you know, here in Arizona, we have what's called constitutional carry. So we have a listening audience that's all over the nation, all over the world. And there's a lot of places that in order to conceal, you know, carry your firearm concealed, you have to have a special license called a concealed carry license. Here in Arizona, we can carry it open, we can carry it concealed. We don't have to have that permission slip from the government. But so you would think that somebody with a why do we need training then if we don't have to have training? Well, because it is a core value for many people, including us as a family and as AZ Firearms. And so we do partner with people like you, David, with your Dynamic Combative Solutions. And we do pass people along to you and say, please get your training. You're not required to have training, but the best way that we can protect that and not having to have permission slips by the government, and the best way for you to protect your family is to get the training. And I don't think you are, I don't think you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for the next class. You have them lined up just all over the calendar and they're full of students. Am I correct?
It's been a little sketch the last couple of months with the election stuff and everything like that going on, but this year has been a fantastic year. Our classes have grown 400% over our first year. We have 15 firearms instructors that work for us. So yeah, we've been teaching CWs all over the Valley. We have our shooting classes going on every weekend. And going back to that CCW, we do have that constitutional carry right, which I'm a big fan of. I mean, I believe that we, the people, are in charge of our government, not the opposite way around. But training should be everybody's personal commandment, if you will, because, you know, David didn't just walk in and stroll in and kill Goliath. He said, "Blessed be God who trains my hands for battle and my fingers for war." He went in there with training. And we think about him using a slingshot to kill Goliath. Okay, that was a steady hand. That was a precisionally aimed shot that he made on the fly in front of the entire military, which psychologically is what destroyed that army at that moment. This 12-year-old, 11-year-old boy walking out on the field of battle with a slingshot killed the great and mighty Goliath. You want that same impression if you get into a violent encounter, that if you're facing opposition of 5-1 and you totally annihilate the first guy with hardly lifting a finger, you want the other 4 to rethink their exercise about whether or not they want to march forward. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, well, I don't know if I could do that. You absolutely can. It may not look like, you know, John Mencina or one of the big guys in the arena, but you're absolutely capable of doing it. Let's figure out what you can do. And because you also need to know your limitations. Maybe you won't be the next tactical Timmy, but if you can get at least to this level, you know that you should probably avoid anything that goes above that. Okay. But you got to have that confidence. And the only way you're going to get that confidence is to have it tested in an environment with people who know what to look for, that can help you make those choices and decisions.
Right. And David, I know that this is kind of a not really a good question because it shouldn't matter, but what's it cost for training? I mean, because there's some people that, they just spent $400 for a gun. They really didn't have the money, but they feel they need to be, have protection. They do need training, and it does cost money, but can you give an idea of what it costs?
Well, I think the first thing that everybody probably should do is get a CCW class so that they understand the law and legal ramifications if you do it. A lot of people don't realize that they're breaking the law in their everyday lives by some of the choices that they make, because there's a lot of people out there, you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry. And yes, you do. It's a class 6 felony in the state of Arizona to have a negligent discharge in your home. So imagine that you're at home, you're cleaning your firearm, and you don't have a clearing barrel or something like that, and you do have a negligent discharge and it destroys property or injures a person, you are facing some consequences. You can't shoot an animal to defend your animal. You can't necessarily shoot a person to defend your animal. So these are things that have gotten a lot of people in Arizona in trouble. You can't use deadly physical force to defend your property. So somebody trying to steal your car in your driveway, or simply the act of breaking in your home, is not justifiable use for deadly physical force. So you need to learn Arizona laws. If you travel to Oklahoma, you need to know their laws, because even though you have our permit, you still have to behave like an Oklahoman and follow their laws when you go there. So I think that's extremely important. So you're not listening to the internet rhetoric that's out there, because there's just a bunch of it. Second to that, I think you just need to kind of set a budget for it, because this is a journey, not a destination. You shouldn't have a goal like, well, if I get my permit, then I'm good. Or if I just go to the range once a week, I'm good. Decide right now what it is that you want to invest in your budget, and start with some of the simple, affordable things first. There's lots of great classes out there that start around $50 to $100. Our introductory class is like $125 now because of the recent range increases and stuff. And that's 4 hours. 4 hours, and Cheryl can tell you that even though I might have 10 students, you're going to get a lot of one-on-one time in that class, and you're going to see a noticeable improvement. So this is not an expense, it's an investment. As you're getting into the higher level classes, cost is going to go up, time's going to go up, your investment in ammunition is going to go up. But you need to broaden your horizons and, take a leap of faith to just get out there and get some professional firearms training. Learn what professional firearms training looks like, and make a commitment this year to get 2 classes this year under your belt, so that you have 6 months to prepare and practice in between each one. And then I think once you get started, you'll become a junkie and you'll enjoy it. And just remember that it's a journey. There's no finish line to this. Just like with martial arts, so you have to continuously practice what it was you did in class, and so that's why we always send you home with homework, so that you practice what it was you learned in class.
Yeah.
Right. And David, can I bring up a point here too? So, it's $150, $125, $150, which is nothing compared to what it could cost you. I know an individual that did a discharge in his house.
Negligent discharge.
Yeah. Then like a year later, he did another one. And when he did the second one, he shot somebody in the house. And
Not
the reason
fatally,
I'm-
thank God, but
Yeah,
still,
right.
there was bodily injury.
Right. The reason I bring this up, one, I don't know of him ever having training.
Mhm.
And two, he spent over $30,000 in legal fees.
Mhm.
And,
Wow, that's affordable.
Yeah.
and
That is
went-
affordable in
and
legal
went to
fees.
jail.
Yeah.
And went to jail.
Yeah.
Then had to wear an ankle bracelet. So
Yep.
what is the cost of training? You need the training. It's just like everything else. If you're going to be a responsible gun owner, you have to take training. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. You cannot be a gun owner unless you're responsible.
Yeah, like what is the cost of not getting training? I think is kind of
Right.
the moral.
Well, and
lesson.
the caveat, the caveat to that is, I don't believe that the government should mandate how much training you should need. We don't need the government in our life to regulate what, responsible adults. Okay. That's where we get seatbelt laws and helmet laws. Okay. I don't like those, because that gets rid of the people who should have worn a helmet or worn a seatbelt. Okay. Or should learn to drive better so you don't need those things. But we don't need the government to come in and do that. I think citizens just need to take it to heart that, look, if I'm going to own this, I need to be the best I possibly can with this. And I, especially when it comes, people ask me all the time, at what age should you start training your kids? Well, you can start teaching them when they're 3, the fire and safety rules, just like you do with knives and the stove is hot and stuff like that. You can teach them with words all the way up till they're about 6. And then it kind of grows into maturity. Can they physically handle the size firearm? And can they go through all the motions first? Training should happen at home in a quiet environment using guns, performing all the functions and operations before you take them to a live range and get them acclimated to the noise, because you cannot teach them in that environment for the first time with all these distractions going on. That's not the best method for doing it. But I want to teach the parents how to teach their children. Will I teach your kids? Absolutely. But I'd rather teach you, have the whole family, husband and wife on the same page, and have you teach your kids, and I will help reinforce it, because that's where the best lessons are learned. It's not going to do me any good if I teach the kids and then you don't reinforce with them what it was I taught them. So it has to be a family thing. Everybody needs to be involved when it comes to raising their kids.
David, this weekend we went to Williams to ride the train.
Yeah.
And we got robbed on the train. Okay. You know how they do
Robbed.
the
The cowboys, the bandits.
And my granddaughter, she's 6. When we got off the train, she goes, "Papa, I want a cap gun." And so we went to the gift shop and I bought her a cap gun and some caps. Before I could get it out of the package, Cheryl was certifying her training to handle that gun. And it's great. It's not funny. It's part of life. It starts with a stick. If you
It does
have a cap gun.
Well, and people have talked about video games before in the past, and this is something that I talked to my wife about. Believe it or not, I believe a lot about what Dave Grossman says, that what you learn in a video game, you will apply to real life, okay? Because video games is a mental game. It's a visual, auditory game, okay? So if I'm out killing zombies with my kids on Call of Duty, I will get 1,000 perfect sight pictures for every 500 zombies I kill. Okay, because you actually get a flash sight picture every time you're aiming and doing that. But I made a choice early on to make sure that my kids play the hero in all of those video games. I made sure to select video games where they were always the hero. I waited until their maturity demonstrated to me that they could handle the other style of video games, because I do think that we're missing a male component, a male role model component in the home as in America as a society. And I've sort of fostered a lot of kids over the years who were missing that male role, because I see them struggling, not knowing what it means to be a man and walk forward in life and protect women and that sort of thing. And boys are hungry for that. Mm-hmm. They need that strong male role model. They need a little bit of responsibility in their lives to, fluff their peacock feathers so they can put their best foot forward. And they need to learn what honor, integrity, duty to their country and their family and their God is all about. Otherwise, they're wayward and they get into wrong groups with the wrong crowds because they're looking for that social acceptance. So our society as a whole is, very misguided when it comes to like the role of males and females in society. There is an equality there, but there's also a grand separation between duties and responsibilities. You've got to have those models, strong family homes to raise these kids and put them in the direction that they should go so that they don't stray.
Right. When we raised our daughter, Cheryl did most of it, but when we raised our daughter, we taught her to be a leader versus a follower. And it kind of tends to keep you from getting in trouble when you do that, whether you're following your friends and doing what they do because they do it.
Well, what's funny is that she's pretty sassy as well. Like you were saying, your sons asked why you let your daughter be sassy. So her name is Cassie. So she is Sassy Cassie by design. And I taught her to question authority, but then I realized, oh, wait, that means she's going to question me. Dadgummit. I needed to rephrase that a little bit.
Well, I remember being raised and, always asking my parents questions, and the answer to everything was because I said so. It used to drive me nuts. I mean, you kids really want to learn. They need training on how to be an adult. I've always said this with my wife, our kids are not kids. Our kids are adults in training. And so we've always treated them like adults. We've always included them in adult conversations so they can learn how adults interact. You know, my wife used to get angry at me when they were toddlers and stuff because, you know, I'd come up and snuggle her and kiss her on her neck. She's like, oh, stop, the kids are here. I was like, no, they need to see that we love each other, setting the example for them of what a strong relationship looks like. You know,
that's true. And it gives them lots of opportunities to go, ew, gross, mom, dad. That's good for
now
them.
that they're all teenagers, we love offending them. So yeah, it's a ton of fun.
Oh, I love it. So you were talking about with Dynamic Combative Solutions that you have, I think you said 15 different instructors.
Yep, with various different backgrounds in current serving or former serving law enforcement, military, competitive shooters, or I've got one gentleman who's an attorney. I've got one gentleman who's just a competitive shooter. Just really outstanding because everybody has something that they really love and enjoy that you do better than everything else. I want them to understand everything we teach and learn everything we teach, but there's certain areas that they really excel in, and having the variety of personalities helps us be more well-rounded for our students. So it's not just Dave Laird here and Dave Laird there. I want all of them to be professionals at what they do.
And so you have to know a thing or two about how to vet an instructor because you're vetting people that you are, you know, trusting with your brand name, trusting with your own name out there. So how does the average Joe or Jane, how do they vet an instructor? And I mean, I think they could go to a well-respected organization because there's already a level of vetting in there. But what are some of the things they could look for?
All right, so big red flags for me is you don't have a website. If you're doing this as a profession, whether it's part-time or full-time, I strongly believe that you need to have a website. Just simple social media is not enough, number one, okay? Because I want to see what you're about. So there should be an about section in that website that tells me what your organization is about. It should also tell me what your instructors are about. And so in the instructor credentials, I want to see how long you've been training, who you've been training with, where you get your certifications and things like that. So if you're not telling me who your company is and who you're about, then that's a little sketch. I know more. One of the neat things about the Nra Credentials, okay, and that's just a starting point. The Nra is not a top tier training organization. They are specifically designed for beginner marksmanship, and that's where their proficiency level ends. But if somebody had an Nra instructor certification, you can go to the Nra website, type in their instructor number and their name, and find out whether or not the credentials are still valid. If they suspended or revoked, that's a huge red flag for me. I want to see student reviews. And in the student reviews, I don't want to see, oh man, it was awesome. We had a great time. Me and Betty, we were just it was great, blah, blah, blah. No, I want to hear about what you learned. I want to hear about how you were treated. I want to know whether or not the value was there. The money you spent on the class, was it worth it? If the testimonials just say, this guy's awesome, he's amazing, we had a fun time, that's scenery. That only tells the opponent. When it comes to training, I want to find out whether or not you had an improvement from when you showed up, if you learned from what it was that you did when you're there. So I want a broader picture of the overall organization to see whether or not they have a vetting thing. And then there's lots of stuff that you're going to see in the class itself, whether or not they cover safety, whether or not they have a medical brief, whether or not they have a pre-test, a post-test, are they sending you home with homework, to see whether or not it's a professionally run organization. So there should be goals and objectives to the class. The class that you're looking at, there should be goals and objectives. If it just, I don't know, if it just talks about, well, we're going to go shoot rifles and have a good time, what are you going to learn? I want to know ahead of time what it is I'm going to learn, what it is I'm going to improve on. Maybe I already know it, but maybe I'll learn a new method to do it, a new way to apply it, or maybe I'll perfect what it is I already know how to do so that I can leave there performing at a higher level than when I arrived.
Absolutely. I think that's a great roadmap for us to be able to start choosing. You and I both are on the board of directors of the Arizona Citizens Defense League Foundation that really is about teaching and training and instilling, those values into the next generation. And that's one of the things that I know we're trying to work on in this coming year is, can we build a website that's already in existence but update it so that we are able to offer people a place to go and say, okay, I'm looking for training, but I'm up in Pahrump, I'm
Yeah.
looking for training, but I'm, down in another area of the state and, offer those, like we've sort of maybe pre-vetted a little bit, like where are we with that? And that's the trainmeaz.com website that I'm talking about.
Well, that's two websites, because Train Me AZ, and then there's the Arizona Citizens Defense League Foundation. So we have two websites that are going to kind of
Correct.
work together. So fortunately, there's a lot of great firearms instructors here in Arizona. I mean, you can throw a rock in any direction. I think it's important that all of them are able to advertise and market on those websites. I have all that information available, and I also, part of my vetting process when I hear about a new instructor is to reach out to other instructors and find out who's heard about them. Because another good thing about vetting your instructor is making sure that they've attended training recently and with who. So they didn't applications like 2 years ago and they're still teaching the same thing. You want to see if they're still regularly taking classes with other instructors and they're trying to continue their education. So right away, when I reach out to my community of instructors here in Arizona and ask them, hey, have you guys ever heard of this? They're like, oh yeah, I took a class with him. It was awesome. It's great. He's a good guy. He's got a good heart. Those are all things that we're looking for, is that they have credentials, that they've got a good heart, and that they're doing everything by their students. I mean, our community on the instructor side, I think is very good in the sense that we want to know the intentions of your heart. Are you doing this to get rich quick? Or are you genuinely doing it because you have a passion for it and you want to help people learn? You may not be awesome at it yet because maybe you're new at it and you're just getting your business started, and there's lots of hurdles there. But if your heart is in the right place, then we'll all support you. We'll all send students to you, especially when you live in the outlying areas like Yuma or Tucson or Payson or Prescott or whatever. So that's a real good thing about our community, and so we'll have no trouble reaching out to them and letting them know that when we have that live, that they can get their stuff listed on both of those websites. So we're still working on the back end website portion of all that.
Absolutely. And, I've actually met very few, but I have met a trainer or two that does it for their own ego. And that is never a good combination. If you have a brand new person who's super, eager to learn and just wanting to soak up every little thing, and then you have this ego-driven instructor, it's so bad. It's just the worst combination. And you are a trainer, so I won't ask you to comment on that because I don't want you to slam any of your.
I've seen David do their class.
Mhm.
And, we've seen 25, maybe 20, 25 people. And I talked to the students after they got out of the class, and he had brand new, never even owned a gun yet come to the class. And he's had experienced people that have been around guns for a long time, and not one single person walked out of that room without learning something.
Mhm.
So good for you.
Well, and that's where, having the right intentions of your heart. I mean, you mentioned earlier about how I vet instructors to be and represent our brand and stuff like that. Out of the gate, they have to pass the Arizona Police Officer Standardized Test with 240 or higher. The instructor level for PD is 230 or higher. So I already require a higher, because I think it's kind of a subpar test. We require that you can pass the FBI shooting qualification, which is a pretty dicey test. And then I want to see that they have all of their NRA credentials, because that is the very basic foundation of credentials. And then we require that they do 60 hours of additional training each year. And so most people, when they're trying to learn and they have to apprentice with us for about a year to learn all of our courses and learn how we operate and function. Most guys that don't have the intentions of the heart never even start. They turn away for it. And then there's other folks who are like, that sounds amazing. I'm going to learn so much working as being part of your team. and I can't wait to help students. So our vetting process right away sends most guys running. Like, I don't want to invest all that in you and your brand. I'm already top tier secret squirrel ninja. What am I going to learn from you?
Yeah.
So yeah, ego definitely plays a part in this realm of stuff. And I think a lot of the big name egos will probably be retiring soon nationwide. And that's going to leave a vacuum or a void for a lot of these new companies who are up and coming. And my primary concern, of course, is just right here in Arizona, being the best training company that we can be here in Arizona for our Valley residents. And once we get this up off the ground and moving in where I want it to be, then we can start the expansion into the outer parts of Arizona and possibly the neighboring states. We've got to do a lot of traveling this year to Kansas and Colorado and Texas for various stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that we do that's not on the website: training church security, training law enforcement, military, and the private sector. We have some groups that fly in from around the United States and outside the country to come train with us, which is super awesome, you know. And I feel privileged when those people reach out to me and say, "Hey, Dave, we want to do X, Y, or Z. Can you help us with that?" I'm like, man, I would love to. Heck yeah.
That's exciting.
That's kind of difficult to, and I hate talking about myself. I hate throwing my resume out there because it's a long resume. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a 3-ring binder that's this thick. How long do you want to talk for? I mean, I hate talking about me. I want to talk about you. What can we help you do?
Absolutely. No, I get that. And that comes through. It's just a natural humility. And I think that is one of the key components of any good teacher or instructor is you're more curious about others than you are eager to, impart who
Well, I
you
can
are.
tell you, I've learned more from students than I ever have attending any instructor credentialed class or any course from anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When my students come and they tell me about their specific need or their specific desire or their specific firearm or the application or their difficulty in learning,
Yeah.
forces me to think outside the box to help them achieve what it is that they're doing. And that's where my gratification comes from, is solving the problem and helping them solve the problem. But it's something that the two of us, me and the student, work on together. And that's where I'm like, woohoo, I did it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought Dan had something to say. I'm looking at you. So we got to start wrapping up, but you are going to be one of our speakers this year at our Celebrate and Protect Your Rights event rally at the Arizona State Capitol on Saturday, February 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Hopefully either COVID won't come along to spoil our plans or some of this other craziness that, is going on that's making people afraid to get together and meet together because some people did some, not great things at our United States Capitol. But we have always had a family-friendly, very fun, very celebratory event, and that's what's planned for this year. Why would you say that it's important for us to have these kinds of get-togethers and events and gatherings?
I remember attending some of these rallies and stuff since my childhood at the Arizona State Capitol. I think that it's important for Arizona residents, if they truly want to protect their Second Amendment rights, their Constitution, their First Amendment rights, they need to physically be present on that particular day to help show our local elected leaders how much our community, our state enjoys our Constitution, not just our federal Constitution, but our state Constitution and our Bill of Rights, state Bill of Rights, as well as our National Bill of Rights. Because I don't think our legislators understand that they work for the people. They need to see the size of their group who is specifically saying, do not touch or infringe on these specific rights. Because we're here, we're involved, we're present. I think anybody who is going to turn around the day after that rally and complain about anything our legislators are trying to do, better go home and just rethink their life in general if they weren't present that particular day at the rally. Because if you're not actively involved in your government, then be prepared for your government to tell you what you can or cannot do.
Amen. That's
Participate. You can't complain on the sideline.
so true. So true. All right. Well, how do people reach out to you? How do they find you? How do they train with you? Give us all the details on how we stay in touch with you.
One of the best ways is to go to our website, www.dcs.training. So I think I'm one of the first groups that got a .training website, which I'm stoked about. You can also check us out on Facebook under Dynamic Combative Solutions. We're now on MeWe as Dynamic Combative Solutions, Freedom Lake as Dynamic Combative Solutions, Parler when it comes back up. So we're on virtually every social media platform. You can check us out on YouTube, and all of our social media links are at the bottom of our website. So you can click on all of those, and we're updating and adding more of those as well, because not only are we on YouTube, but now we're jumping onto, I've got everything uploaded on Rumble. This past week has been week and a half has been a huge switch from one social media to another to make ourselves more visible, because we want to make sure that we're on the platforms that support our First Amendment rights.
Absolutely. David Laird, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. David Laird of the Dynamic Combative Solutions, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts at the Celebrate and Protect Your Rights rally on February 20th.
Well, thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Take it easy.
Absolutely.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
We'll see
God
you.
bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
He's amazing.
He really is. I mean, he's just a good friend. He's a great person. He's a great dad, a great husband. And from having trained with him out on the range, I can say he's a great instructor. He's very intuitive and very tapped into each individual person, what their particular needs are.
Silly things like you took a gun out of the showcase
Mm-hmm.
and took it to get training.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things you don't think about,
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, wait, it has to be sighted in.
Yeah.
And, sights might fit different for you than it would be somebody else. So it's not like you can buy a gun out of the box and it's ready to go.
Yeah. So true.
And you don't think about stuff like that. So again, that's in that training thing.
Absolutely. All right. We have got to wrap up and get out of here, but holy cow. Thank you so much to our guest today, David Laird of Dynamic Combative Solutions. Thank you so much to our listeners, to each and every one of you out there who are taking these conversations and bringing them to your dinner tables and your carpools and, all the spheres of influence that you have out there to keep the conversation going. That's really where the rubber meets the road. And we so value you and appreciate that. And until next time, please pray for our nation. Pray for our
Representatives.
Absolutely. Our public servants, our leaders. There are people in our lives who are our leaders, right? We want to pray for them as well. They might not be that same, might not be our representatives, probably aren't our leaders, but maybe some are.
So if aliens came down from planet Zula and said, Cheryl, take us to your leader, who would that leader be? Because we don't have leaders.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say, you know what? You looked us up wrong, guy. We don't have leaders.
Yeah.
We have representatives.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
We don't have leaders.
Okay.
Like, take you to Great Britain's leader.
So pray for all of these representatives. Representatives, are they really representing you? See, that's a hard word to use too. But even the ones you don't like.
All of them.
All of them.
All
Especially the
all
ones
the
you
ones.
don't like. Have a great week. Be good to each other. And God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.